Are you deaf or just stupid? I said premium water, not this garbage. Do they hire anyone with a pulse these days? Blake Whitmore doesn't even glance up from his gold-plated tablet as he humiliates the stunning flight attendant in front of the entire first-class cabin. Around the luxury aircraft, other wealthy passengers smirk at his casual cruelty, treating the spectacle like entertainment. She's absolutely breathtaking, Alexandra Rivera, with honey-colored skin that suggests Brazilian heritage, striking hazel eyes that shift between green and gold in the cabin lighting, and long caramel brown hair pulled back in a perfect chignon. Her flight attendant uniform, tailored to perfection, accentuates her model-like figure. At 28, she looks like she stepped off a Sao Paulo runway rather than an aviation academy. "Of course, sir. My apologies," she responds with a practiced smile, her slight accent adding warmth to words that should sting with humiliation. But those watching closely might notice how her grip on the bottle shifts slightly, revealing a small scar on her inner wrist, the kind that doesn't come from serving passengers. Blake finally looks up, his entitled gaze lingering inappropriately on her figure. Maybe pay attention instead of daydreaming about whatever third-world country you crawled out of. The cabin falls uncomfortably silent. Even the other privileged passengers seem taken aback by the unnecessary viciousness. But Alexandra's smile never wavers, though something dangerous flickers behind those hazel eyes. What Blake Whitmore doesn't know is that the woman he's treating like a servant once flew F-22 Raptors in classified missions over 3 continents. And in exactly 14 minutes, when armed hijackers storm this aircraft, he'll discover why Captain Alexandra Rivera left the Air Force, and why some records say she should be dead.
Welcome to Quiet Tales Studio. Before we continue this story of hidden strength and deadly grace, tell us in the comments where you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, hit that subscribe button. Flight 447 from New York to London represents the pinnacle of luxury aviation. The Boeing 787 Dreamliner has been converted into a flying palace, complete with private suites, a full bar, and service that costs more per hour than most people earn in a month. Tonight's passenger manifest reads like a Forbes list: tech moguls, oil executives, foreign diplomats, and their families. Alexandra Rivera moves through the cabin with practiced grace, her every step calculated to appear effortless while maintaining perfect balance at 35,000 feet. She's worked this route for 8 months now, ever since she took the position with Elite Airways, a private charter service catering exclusively to the ultra-wealthy. "Excuse me, miss," a distinguished older gentleman in a navy suit gestures politely. "Could I trouble you for another coffee?" "Of course, Mr. Patterson." "The Colombian blend again?" Her voice carries just a hint of her Brazilian accent, enough to seem exotic, but not enough to be difficult to understand. "You remember. Excellent service as always." Unlike Blake Whitmore, Patterson treats her with genuine respect. He's old money, the kind that doesn't need to prove itself through cruelty. As Alexandra pours his coffee, her movements are fluid, professional, but those with military experience might notice something others miss. The way she constantly scans the cabin, how her eyes automatically identify exits, the subtle way she positions herself to see both the cockpit door and the main aisle simultaneously. "Beautiful evening for flying," Patterson comments, nodding toward the window where stars twinkle against the vast darkness. "Indeed, sir. Clear skies, all the way to London." Alexandra's response is pleasant, but her mind is elsewhere, processing the subtle changes in engine sound, the barely perceptible shift in altitude that indicates they're approaching their cruising level. 3 rows behind Patterson, Blake Whitmore holds court with 2 other young executives, their conversation loud enough to be intentionally overheard. "Daddy bought me the new McLaren for my birthday," he brags, his voice carrying the particular arrogance that comes from never having earned anything. 300 grand, but what's money when you have taste?" His companions laugh appropriately, though their eyes occasionally drift to Alexandra as she works. She's impossible to ignore, the kind of beautiful that makes conversations pause and heads turn. But she's become expert at deflecting attention, playing the role of the charming but ultimately invisible service staff. "Miss," Blake's voice cuts through the cabin like a knife. This water tastes like garbage. Bring me something that doesn't come from a gas station. Alexandra approaches his seat with the same professional smile she's maintained all evening. I apologize, sir. Perhaps you'd prefer the French spring water? It's imported specifically for this flight. Blake makes a show of examining the bottle, as if its molecular composition matters to his refined palate. This will do, I suppose. Though I don't know why they can't train you people to bring the right thing the first time. You people, in Blake's mouth, carries unmistakable implications. His companions exchange glances. Even they seem uncomfortable with the naked prejudice. I'll make note of your preferences for future flights, sir, Alexandra responds evenly, though something shifts almost imperceptibly in her posture. Those hazel eyes, which had been warm and accommodating, now carry a hint of steel. As she turns to leave, Blake's hand shoots out, grasping her wrist. Actually, since you're here, why don't you tell us where you're really from? The accent's cute, but I'm betting there's a more interesting story. For just a moment, Alexandra goes completely still. The casual contact, the presumptuous invasion of her personal space, the implied question about her immigration status, it all combines into a perfect storm of insulting behavior. But instead of jerking away or showing anger, she does something unexpected. She smiles wider, and for the first time tonight it reaches her eyes. But it's not a pleasant smile. It's the smile of a predator who's just been given permission to hunt. I'm from Sao Paulo originally, she says conversationally, making no move to pull away from his grip. Beautiful city, very dangerous though. You learn to defend yourself early, or you don't survive long. There's something in her tone that makes Blake release her wrist immediately. Something that suggests she's not talking about pickpockets and purse snatchers. Well, he says, his confidence wavering slightly, that's interesting. Indeed it is. Alexandra straightens her uniform with deliberate care. If you'll excuse me, I need to check on the other passengers. As she walks away, Blake tries to regain his swagger with his companions, but the moment has shifted. They've all seen something in Alexandra's eyes that doesn't match her subservient role, something that suggests depths they can't fathom. In the galley, Alexandra takes a moment to compose herself. She opens a small compact mirror, ostensibly to check her appearance, but actually to survey the cabin behind her. Old habits from another life, when situational awareness meant survival. 8 months of this assignment, and her cover remains intact. To everyone aboard this flight, she's exactly what she appears to be, a beautiful ex-model turned flight attendant, working to pay the bills while dreaming of something better. They see the perfect figure, the stunning face, the charming accent, and they make assumptions. They don't see the way she memorized every passenger's name and background before boarding. They don't notice how she's identified 3 potential weapons within arm's reach, or how she's already calculated the optimal response to 6 different emergency scenarios. They especially don't see the small device hidden in her uniform pocket, currently recording every conversation in the cabin, transmitting encrypted data to a secure server somewhere in Virginia. Because Alexandra Rivera isn't really a flight attendant. She's not really Brazilian either, though the accent is authentic, learned during 2 years of deep cover operations in South America. Her real name is classified, buried in files marked with security clearances most people don't know exist. She's here because someone on this flight is about to commit treason, and she's the one assigned to stop them. The only question is whether she can maintain her cover long enough to complete the mission, or whether Blake Whitmore's casual cruelty will force her to break character in ways that could compromise everything. Through the small galley window, she watches clouds drift past in the moonlight. Somewhere below, the Atlantic Ocean stretches endlessly toward Europe. In 6 hours, they'll land in London, and either her mission will be complete, or it will have gone spectacularly wrong. Either way, she thinks as she watches Blake gesture dismissively at a passing male flight attendant, tonight is going to be memorable. 2 hours into the flight, the cabin has settled into the quiet luxury that Elite Airways markets to its exclusive clientele. Most passengers are either sleeping in their fully reclining seats or working quietly on their devices. The lighting has been dimmed to simulate evening, though at this altitude, the concept of day and night becomes fluid. Alexandra moves through her duties with mechanical precision, but her attention is focused on a conversation happening in Suite 3A. Through the sensitive microphone hidden in her collar pin, She's been monitoring Patterson and a man named Viktor Kozlov, a Russian energy executive. The documentation will be transferred during the London layover, Kozlov says in accented English, his voice barely above a whisper. Your contact will approach you in the VIP lounge. Blue briefcase, combination 7749. Patterson nods, his distinguished facade hiding something much darker. And the payment? Already in your Swiss account. 12 million, as agreed. Alexandra's blood runs cold. $12 million for stolen defense contracts, enough to compromise American military technology for the next decade. This is what she's been waiting for, the proof she needs to justify 8 months of this assignment. She's so focused on the conversation that she almost misses the subtle change in the aircraft's movement. A slight deviation in course, barely perceptible to most passengers, but unmistakable to someone with her training. They're not heading toward London anymore. Moving casually toward the cockpit, Alexandra tries the door handle. Locked. Through the small window, she can see Captain Morrison slumped over the controls, unconscious. In the co-pilot's seat, a man she doesn't recognize wears Morrison's uniform, but not his face. The hijacking has begun. Ladies and gentlemen, the fake pilot's voice comes over the intercom, calm and professional. We're experiencing a minor navigational issue. Please remain seated while we resolve this. Alexandra's mind races through possibilities. The passengers haven't realized what's happening yet, but that won't last long. She needs to assess the situation, identify the hostiles, and find a way to regain control of the aircraft. Miss Rivera, Blake's voice cuts through her calculations. He's standing behind her, but something's different about his tone. Gone is the casual arrogance, replaced by something sharper, more focused. She turns to face him, maintaining her flight attendant persona. Yes, sir? Is there something I can help you with? Blake's eyes have changed too. The entitled smirk has been replaced by cold calculation. Actually, yes. I need you to return to the galley and stay there. Don't come out until we land. I'm sorry, sir, but I have duties to attend to. Not anymore. Blake pulls aside his jacket, revealing a concealed pistol. Your duties have been reassigned. The cabin erupts in gasps and screams as other passengers notice the weapon. But Alexandra doesn't flinch. Instead, she studies Blake with new eyes, reassessing everything she thought she knew about him. You're not really Blake Whitmore, she says quietly. Very good, though the real Blake is quite dead, unfortunately. Inconvenient timing on his part. The man wearing Blake's face gestures with his weapon. Now the galley. Please. Other figures reveal themselves throughout the cabin. What Alexandra had taken for passengers and crew members are actually a coordinated team of professionals. 6 hostiles, all armed, all moving with military precision. This isn't a simple hijacking. This is something much more sophisticated. Everyone remain calm, the fake Blake announces to the cabin. This aircraft is now under new management. Follow instructions, and no one needs to get hurt. As he speaks, Alexandra catches Patterson's eye. The distinguished older gentleman gives her the slightest nod, and she realizes with a chill that he's part of this too. The conversation about selling defense contracts wasn't intelligence gathering. It was coordination between conspirators. She's walked into a trap. The galley, Blake repeats, his weapon trained on her center mass. Now. Alexandra raises her hands in apparent surrender, playing the terrified flight attendant role to perfection. But as she backs toward the galley, her fingers find the hidden clasp on her uniform collar. A soft click releases a safety mechanism that's been dormant for 8 months. Because while Alexandra Rivera might be a flight attendant, the woman wearing her face is something else entirely. Captain Irina Camilla, United States Air Force, call sign Viper. Former F-22 pilot, Special Operations qualified, presumed killed in action 3 years ago during a classified mission in Eastern Europe. She'd been hunting arms dealers when her aircraft was shot down over hostile territory. Officially, she died in the crash. Unofficially, she spent 6 months in a Serbian prison before escaping and making her way back to American forces. The experience had changed her, made her perfect for deep cover work. Who would suspect a dead pilot of conducting intelligence operations? But tonight, her cover is blown, and 6 armed professionals have control of an aircraft full of innocent people. Time to remember why they called her Viper. "There's just one problem with your plan," she says as she reaches the galley entrance. Blake's smile is coldly confident. "And what's that?" Alexandra's hands drop to her sides, and when she looks up, her entire demeanor has transformed. Gone is the subservient flight attendant, replaced by something predatory and focused. You forgot to check if your flight attendant was actually a flight attendant. The transformation is instantaneous and complete. Alexandra's posture shifts from defensive to offensive, her movements becoming fluid and precise. The frightened service worker vanishes, replaced by someone who radiates controlled violence. Blake's confident expression falters. "What did you—" He never finishes the question. Alexandra moves with shocking speed, her hand striking his wrist with surgical precision. The gun flies from his grasp, clattering across the aisle. Before he can react, she's behind him, one arm locked around his throat in a blood choke that will render him unconscious in seconds. "Federal agent," she announces calmly to the cabin. "Everyone stay down." Blake struggles briefly, then goes limp. Alexandra lowers his unconscious form to the floor and retrieves his weapon, checking the chamber with professional efficiency. The other 5 hostiles react immediately, raising their weapons, but Alexandra is already moving. She uses the galley entrance as cover, her mind automatically calculating angles and distances. "Contact front," one of the hostiles shouts, the military terminology confirming Alexandra's assessment that these are professionals, not common criminals. A burst of gunfire shatters the galley window behind her head. Passengers scream and dive for cover, but Alexandra's focus is absolute. She returns fire with controlled precision, 2 shots center mass. The hostile drops immediately. 4 remaining. "Who the hell is she?" someone shouts over the chaos. "Doesn't matter," comes the reply. "Take her down." Alexandra vaults over the galley counter, landing in the aisle with cat-like grace. Her movement draws fire, but she's already anticipated the angles, rolling behind the shelter of the bar unit. Through the chaos, she hears the fake pilot's voice on the intercom. "We have a problem. The package is compromised." Package. Military slang for a high-value asset being transported or extracted. Alexandra realizes this entire operation isn't about the money Patterson and Kozlov discussed. That was just cover. Someone on this flight is being kidnapped, and she stumbled into the middle of it. A hostile flanks her position, moving up the left aisle. Alexandra waits until he's committed to his advance, then emerges from cover. Her shots are precise, professional. He falls before he can bring his weapon to bear. 3 remaining, but they're adapting to her tactics, using passengers as cover. She can't risk collateral damage, which limits her options significantly. "Stand down," one of them shouts. "We have hostages." Through the smoke and chaos, Alexandra sees them grabbing civilians, using elderly passengers and terrified businessmen as human shields. Her military training wars with her protective instincts. That's when she notices something that changes everything. In Suite 1A, partially hidden behind an overturned table, is a young girl, maybe 8 years old, with dark hair and frightened eyes. She's not on the passenger manifest Alexandra memorized, which means she's the real target. Everything else, the arms dealing, the hijacking, even Blake's elaborate cover identity, was just misdirection. This is a kidnapping operation, and that little girl is what they came for. Alexandra's tactical assessment shifts immediately. This isn't about neutralizing hostiles anymore. It's about protecting an innocent child from people who will kill anyone to complete their mission. She keys the emergency frequency on her hidden radio. "Control, this is Viper. Operation compromised. Require immediate support." The response crackles through her earpiece. "Viper, control. No support available your location. You are on your own." Of course she is. At 40,000 feet over the Atlantic, she's more alone than she's ever been. But she's been in worse situations before. She thinks about the little girl hiding behind that table, probably wondering why the nice flight attendant lady is shooting people. Thinks about the innocent passengers caught in a nightmare they never could have imagined. Most of all, she thinks about Blake Whitmore, or whoever he really is, and his casual cruelty, his assumption that she was nothing more than a pretty face to be dismissed and degraded. Time to show him exactly how wrong he was. Alexandra checks her ammunition. 14 rounds remaining. 3 hostiles plus however many more might be in the cockpit. Not impossible odds, but challenging. She takes a deep breath, centers herself, and prepares to do what she does best. Time to earn her call sign. The aircraft shudders as the fake pilot throws it into an evasive maneuver, probably trying to confuse any potential rescue aircraft. But the violent movement works in Alexandra's favor, throwing 2 of the remaining hostiles off balance. She emerges from cover like a storm, moving with the fluid precision of someone who's fought in environments where hesitation means death. Her first target barely has time to register her presence before her bullets find their mark. 2 remaining, plus whoever's controlling the aircraft. "Take the girl," one of them shouts. "Forget the agent." They're abandoning their original plan, focusing on their primary objective. Alexandra can't allow that to happen. She vaults over a row of seats, landing in the aisle between the hostiles and the child. When she turns to face them, there's something in her eyes that makes even these hardened professionals hesitate. "You want her," Alexandra says quietly. "You go through me." The nearest hostile makes his choice, raising his weapon. Alexandra moves faster, her shot taking him center mass before he can fire. But the second hostile has circled behind her, using the confusion to gain a better position. She spins, weapon raised, but he already has his gun trained on the little girl. "Drop it," he commands. "Drop your weapon or the child dies." Alexandra freezes. This is the nightmare scenario every operator fears, when tactics and training become irrelevant because innocent lives hang in the balance. The little girl stares at her with huge, trusting eyes. She's counting on the pretty lady who served her juice earlier to keep her safe. "You have 3 seconds, the hostile says. Alexandra looks at the child, then at the man threatening her. In that moment, she makes a decision that goes against every tactical manual ever written. She drops her weapon. "Smart choice," the hostile says, relief evident in his voice. He starts to lower his gun slightly, confident that he's regained control of the situation. That's when Alexandra moves. She doesn't go for another weapon, or try to tackle him directly. Instead, she grabs the heavy crystal decanter from the bar service and hurls it with perfect accuracy. The man's instinctive duck gives her the split second she needs to dive forward, tackling him before he can reacquire his target. They crash into the seats, fighting for control of his weapon. He's stronger, but she's faster and more desperate. The gun discharges once, the bullet embedding harmlessly in the ceiling. Alexandra gets her hands on the weapon, but he maintains his grip. They struggle, the barrel pointing wildly as each tries to gain control. Finally, Alexandra does something unexpected. Instead of trying to turn the gun on him, she drives her elbow into his solar plexus with devastating force. As he gasps for breath, she strips the weapon away and puts 2 rounds center mass. The cabin falls silent, except for the sound of the engines and the quiet sobbing of terrified passengers. Alexandra immediately goes to the little girl, kneeling beside her hiding spot. "Hey, sweetheart, you're safe now. What's your name?" "Sophia," the child whispers. "Are the bad men gone?" "Yes, baby, they're gone." Alexandra gently helps her to her feet. "Are you hurt?" Sophia shakes her head, but her eyes are wide with trauma. Alexandra recognizes the look. She's seen it too many times in war zones. "Sophia, I need you to be very brave for me, okay? Can you do that?" The little girl nods. "Good. I need to go make sure the airplane is safe, but I'm going to have this nice gentleman take care of you." She gestures to Patterson, who, despite his earlier suspicious conversation, has shown no hostile intent. Sometimes in fluid situations, you have to make trust decisions based on instinct. Alexandra moves toward the cockpit, stepping over the bodies of the hostiles. Each one carries professional equipment, encrypted radios, high-end weapons, tactical gear that costs more than most people's cars. This wasn't a random operation. Someone invested serious money in this kidnapping attempt. At the cockpit door, she pauses. One more hostile inside, possibly 2. She's down to 8 rounds, and she needs to retake control of the aircraft before whoever hired these people sends backup. She tries the door handle, still locked. "This is Captain Rivera, United States Air Force," she announces loudly. "You have one chance to surrender peacefully." The response comes in the form of bullets through the cockpit door. Alexandra sighs. They never choose the easy way. She shoots the lock mechanism, kicks the door open, and enters the cockpit with her weapon raised. The fake pilot spins in his seat, gun in hand, but Alexandra is faster. Her shot takes him in the shoulder, spinning him around. His weapon clatters to the floor. Captain Morrison is unconscious but breathing. Alexandra checks his pulse. Drugged, not dead. He'll live. She drags the wounded hostile out of the pilot's seat and takes the controls herself. The aircraft is stable, autopilot engaged, but they're way off course. Time to bring them home. 3 hours later, Flight 447 touches down at a military airfield outside London. The runway is lined with emergency vehicles, military personnel, and federal agents from 3 different countries. As passengers disembark, they're met by investigators who will spend the next several hours taking statements about the most terrifying flight of their lives. Alexandra, whose real name, it turns out, is classified even higher than most of the agents debriefing her, sits in a secure conference room, still wearing her flight attendant uniform but with a tactical vest over it. Across from her sits Director Sarah Chen from the CIA's Special Activities Division. So, Director Chen says, reviewing the preliminary report, "You infiltrated a suspected arms-dealing network, uncovered a kidnapping operation, neutralized 6 hostiles, and saved a child who happens to be the daughter of a Romanian defense minister." "Yes, ma'am." "All while maintaining your cover as a civilian flight attendant." "Until the end, yes, ma'am." Director Chen leans back in her chair. The real Blake Whitmore's body was found in his London hotel room this morning. Professional hit, made to look like a heart attack. They'd been planning this for months. What about Sophia? Safe. Her father never knew she was in danger. As far as he knows, she was visiting her grandmother in New York and took a commercial flight home. Alexandra nods. And the other passengers? Cover story is that it was an attempted robbery that went wrong. They'll never know how close they came to international incident. Through the window, Alexandra can see Sophia being reunited with her father, a stern man in a military uniform who sweeps his daughter into his arms like she's the most precious thing in the world. One more thing, Director Chen says. Blake Whitmore, the real one, apparently made quite an impression on you during the flight. He was unnecessarily cruel. Yes, well, it turns out the real Blake was actually a decent person. Donated millions to charity, treated his staff well, was known for his kindness. The man who insulted you was a professional killer wearing his face. Alexandra absorbs this information quietly. The cruelty she'd experienced hadn't been from an entitled rich kid, but from a sociopath playing a role. Does that change how you feel about what happened? Alexandra thinks about Sophia's frightened eyes, about the innocent passengers who could have died, about the arms dealers who were selling American military secrets to the highest bidder. No, ma'am, it doesn't. Director Chen smiles. Good answer, because we have another assignment for you, something involving a luxury cruise ship and a suspected human trafficking network. When do I start? Your cover identity is already in place. You'll be working as a spa attendant. Think you can handle being underestimated again? Alexandra Rivera, or whatever her real name is, allows herself a small smile. Director, I've learned that being underestimated is the most dangerous mistake people can make. Outside, Sophia waves goodbye from her father's arms, not knowing that the nice flight attendant lady who saved her life is already disappearing back into the shadows, ready to become someone else entirely. Because some heroes don't wear uniforms or badges. They wear disguises and serve drinks in clean rooms and remain invisible until the moment when visibility becomes a weapon. And sometimes, when evil thinks it has won, when cruelty seems to have triumphed, those hidden heroes remind everyone that appearances can be deceiving. Very deceiving indeed. At Quiet Tale Studio, we believe that strength doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it serves champagne with a smile and waits for the moment when it's needed most. Have you ever met someone who turned out to be completely different from your first impression? Share your story in the comments below. And remember, never underestimate the quiet ones. You never know what they're capable of. Thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button for more stories about heroes hiding in plain sight. We'll see you in the next one.